Good morning, it's 6 o'clock on Tuesday the 22nd of November. This is BBC Radio Kent Breakfast with John and Maggie.
On the programme this morning, a Kent school has cancelled a talk by a right-wing journalist over safety concerns.
Just saying I'm offended isn't an argument. That period is over now.
Doug's in Essex. Hello, Doug. How are you this morning?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm well, thank you, Doug. Do you think this speech at the Simon Langton School for Boys should have gone ahead?
And it's a very sad and a rather damning indictment of not only how the government restricts freedom of speech and expression, but also the increasing political bias of the Department of Education. They didn't act on banning Natalie Bennett, the former Green Party leader, when she blamed the Woolwich terror attack on the UK's foreign policy, when she said, stop regarding ourselves as the world policeman.
But neither did the Department for Education, as we understand it, ban Milo Yiannopoulos. They approached the school and expressed concerns about security arrangements given...
Well, you can read between the lines. They were all for the debate, the school was. Then they met with the Department of Education, and then it was cancelled. So you can read between the lines, but it wasn't directly the department.
So do you think that the department put unacceptable pressure on the school? Is that your opinion?
Yes. It's not morally right for the government and the Department of Education to say what speech is okay and what speech is not okay. And yes, there are hate speech laws, which many disagree with. I disagree with. People are being imprisoned and fined for things they've said. But, it's not morally right for the government to say.
But if you're anticipating hate speech, which is against the law of this country, why would you welcome that happening in a school? I'm just asking from a philosophical point of view, because I think it's an interesting argument. If you know, and you yourself were talking about it as referring to hate speeches, incitement to hatred is against the law of the land. So why would you want to hear that in a school?
Well, it's actually very important to hear it at the school, because once you open it up to a discussion, a debate, and students have planned to bring up and challenge him on quotes he has made in the past, in the Q&A section they had planned to do this. And the best disinfectant to bad ideas is sunlight.
Oh, you're directly quoting Roger Goff.
Yes, that's what Milo Yiannopoulos said, and the best way to challenge these ideas is to talk about it. A good example is when...
Really? Hold on a second, I want to jump in. Do we really have to hear hatred? I mean, as a woman, this man expresses hatred towards women. Do I really have to hear his opinions in order to understand them, in order to, in some way, form my own opinion? Why would I need to hear hatred? Why would Muslims need to hear hatred of themselves expressed in a school, which is a place that is supposed to be a place of equality? Race hatred and various other types of hatred in this country are against the law. Why do you think they should be given a voice?
Well, it's a voluntary invitation. They don't have to go. But a good example is when the BNP were invited to Question Time. This is a far-right group, but they were open to national coverage, and their popularity was not helped by that. And, Nick Griffin had him on the show, the BNP leader, and it really degraded their support. People saw that it was a racist party. And if they have that same suggestion here, it could happen again. But what happens is it just grows his support. This is what the alt-right, Milo Yiannopoulos and Donald Trump thrive off. They thrive off this anti-PC culture, this nanny state culture. And it's one of the driving factors behind the Donald Trump movement. And we may see a parallel.
Why is it PC? And why do people use that as though it's some sort of terrible thing to be politically correct, to say, I don't want hatred to be espoused in this school?
But the issue with political correctness is there is a blurred line between what is factually correct and then what's offensive. And some people then, some factual things which sometimes he says it isn't factual, but some things he says are factual, but they're called offensive. Like
what? Give me some examples.
Well, of course, he says that a Telegraph study found out 7% of people in the UK or Britain, are feminists. Only 7%. So he's not the extremist to oppose feminism, but now his rhetoric and his kind of provocative tone is, of course, extreme. But the foundation of his kind of anti-feminist movement is not extreme, and for only 7% of feminists, for only 7% of people to be feminists, and more men are feminists than women, does indicate that he's not extreme, and there is a line between political correctness and factual correctness.
I find that a really bizarre argument, that we would take a random figure from a Daily Telegraph article in order to substantiate the hatred that he espouses towards women as normal.
Well, it's not normal, of course, and he does thrive off this. He does say things that are offensive. But once you shut it down, it just grows his popularity. And that's even worse because these students listen to him online where he isn't challenged. They'll listen to him on social media where he isn't challenged. But if you can challenge him, he may be looked silly. He'll be looked to be silly.
Well, hold on a second. This guy is a smart, educated 32-year-old. You really think that boys at a school in Kent are the right people to challenge his views?
Well, I think this is systematically the problem which the National Union of Teachers had. They didn't trust the students to question him. And yes, he is very clever, but that doesn't mean his ideologies are clever. Many people would say his ideologies aren't clever. So if you allow students to question him, it sets a good precedent for free speech, and sets a good precedent for their future university careers where they will have to challenge bad ideas and appraise good ideas.
Thank you very much indeed.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
Doug Wood was helping to organise this talk. Doug, but what were the rules of engagement on this talk? And what's this stuff about a debrief which Gary mentioned?
Well, the subject was discussing the US election, the alt-right, and what to expect when these students do go to university. And there was one of the main elements of his talks are a Q&A after, and students had prepared questions to challenge him and to pull up quotes from his past, from his controversial past, and then to question him on that. So, and then there was a debrief after, but it wasn't just him talking, wasn't just
Can I query what the debrief means, please?
The debrief is just a talk after to evaluate how it went. So I haven't actually heard much about this, but it's...
I'm aware that the school, there is a fan base of Yiannopoulos in the school. I have that directly from the headmaster. As someone who went to that school, that does not surprise me. It was a place that could foster unchecked ideas like that.
Well, actually, last week they did have a feminist, an LGBT supporter, and a left-wing academic. But
these are credible political opinions, whereas his are not credible opinions.
Discussion there. There is a discussion there.
No, sorry. Do you think a slogan like "feminism is cancer" is a legitimate political belief?
Well, I don't personally, but I don't think the government should inhibit.
And you are legitimising it by inviting him to speak.
Absolutely not. The government shouldn't inhibit his freedom of expression and speech. And
he has the freedom to express. You do not have to invite him to speak.
Of course, you don't have to invite him.
Not inviting someone is not the same as censoring someone.
But the school and the student body wanted to invite, but then the government stepped in and strongly advised that the school disinvite him.
We've got it. We've just
shows
heard.
the political bias.
I've got the quote from the Department of Education. Unless Milo is debating the decision to cancel the event was a matter for the school. That is from the DofE.
But the school don't seem to be saying that. I mean, there's some. They're not.
You can see between the
they're
lines.
lying.
You can see between the lines. They were happy to have this. Then the Department of Education got involved, and then suddenly they remove it. So you can look between the lines there.
Can we agree that if let's say we were talking about, I don't know, a further education college, so basically the kids were older, if they're sort of 18, 19, 20-year-olds, would you still object then? Or is it the fact that you've got sort of young, impressionable minds here?
I mean, that's part of it. I think I need to be very clear about this. I do not think that not inviting someone to speak is the same as censoring them. I do not think that someone with a view like Yiannopoulos should be considered as a legitimate political standpoint.
Okay.
So therefore, I do not think he should be invited to speak.
But who decides what's a legitimate standpoint then? Who makes that decision? I suppose that's the issue, which you've got to admit is a grey area. I mean, who are you to say, Gary? Who am I to say? Who's Doug to say, for that matter?
Right, I'll tell you what, I'll give you a quote from Milo. He says this of Muslims: if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile and rape everything inside it, and they won't stop spreading. Do you feel that's a legitimate political statement? Do you think that's reasoned?
I obviously don't think that is legitimate, and that's why the students were prepared
and yet
to question.
You choose to legitimise it.
Well, you don't.
We shouldn't model students in bubble wrap. They're not snowflakes. We shouldn't allow the selectively offended to dictate what freedoms are okay and what the government should enact on.
No. Yes, I'm talking about a legitimate political viewpoint. I have a question for you. I have a question for you. Own off some facts,
right?
Which I would disagree with.
Okay, I think we'll have to leave it there. Listen, but go on, one more. Go on, Gary, very quickly. Go on.
Would you invite a member of Britain First, or let's say the radical Islamist Anjem Chowdhury, to speak at the school?
Okay.
Yes, so we can shut him down. And
All
You would?
Okay,
Okay,
I
I'd
think
like to see this
okay.
happen.
All right then. Okay, Gary, Doug, we'll have to leave it there. Thanks for that.